Welcome to the Raising Confident Girls podcast, your guide to raising strong, confident daughters. I'm Melissa Jones, the founder of Girls Positivity Club and a teacher for over 20 years. In a world where girls often feel overwhelmed, anxious, and confused, this podcast is your go-to space. As caregivers, we navigate challenges together. I founded Girls Positivity Club to provide a place where you belong and get the tools to face today's hurdles. Consider this your regular check-in with a trusted friend, offering insights and practical tips for meaningful conversations. I'm here to help you feel confident on this journey of raising a generation of empowered girls. Let's dive in and raise those confident girls together. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Raising Confident Girls. I'm Melissa Jones, the host and founder of Girls Positivity Club, and I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to spend this with me, learning about how to support your daughters and build that connection and help her in lots of ways. And, today's topic is something very common, I think, not only with girls, but with adults and with humans in general. And that is overcoming the fear of failure and how to support your daughter and embracing it in more of a growth mindset way. Before we get too deep into the episode, I wanted to remind you that the biggest compliment that you can give this show is to send it to another parent of a girl that this could help, caregiver of a girl. I have grandmas who listen, I have aunties who listen, and moms, dads, whoever wants to make positive impact in girls' lives. So the very biggest way that you can do that is to send the show to another person that it could help. So, today we're focusing on that fear of failure. And I think it's something that can paralyze girls, especially as they're growing up. I was talking to a person yesterday who is an auntie of girls, and she was saying how her sister was talking about her daughter. And, it's hard sometimes, I think, for us to put ourselves in their shoes because we're looking at life through an adult lens. And my friend brought up a good point that she mentioned to her sister. And that is, in her life, this is the world to her. She is experiencing this like this in this certain situation. And, you are viewing it as an adult. And I think sometimes we fall into that trap of, oh, it's no big deal. And I talk about this a lot on the podcast, as you know, if you've listened before. And that is validating her feelings and not minimizing them, because to them, it is a big deal. To them, it is the way that they're seeing it. And it doesn't mean that you never expose them to other perspectives or give them that macro, like bigger view of the world. But I think we have to take a step back sometimes and look at something as your daughter or the girl in your life, because that is a superpower. If you can do that and you can think of it as you were a girl or in her age, and even if it's hard for you to understand because you never really went through it, just asking her perspective and for her to explain it and for you just to listen and empathize with the way that she's seeing things. Because I think it's so easy. I've talked to so many moms lately who have said it's so easy to dismiss and just to be like, oh, it'll be fine. Like, just don't worry about it. And that we all have well intentions when we say things like that, but to them, it's very dismissive. And, I've made lots of mistakes as a parent. If you've listened before, I say all the time, like, I make lots of mistakes. And I think that it really ties into failure, because you could see that as, oh my gosh, that conversation was a failure. So instead of just being like, well, I'm never bringing that topic up again, thinking, okay, what could I learn from that? Okay, wasn't the best timing. I picked a time that wasn't great to talk to her about this. I kind of machine gunned the questions. This is what my family says I do sometimes. Machine gun questions, which is like question after question after question. And it makes them feel interrogated. Like, okay, that was a fail. what could I do differently next time? And it's really teaching her to also have that growth mindset. And I think about, girls who are in our clubs, in girls positivity clubs, in camps, and the conversations that we've had, and also with each other about tryouts. I think fear of failure is in the realm of tryout world. And it doesn't mean that I don't think that, girls should ever have to try out for something, because there is a purpose in a tryout, because there are different levels of development in every area, whether it's choir or art or music or um, sport, whatever it would be. And so I think of this one girl in particular who had gone to middle school. She's now in high school, but at the time she was in middle school, she had been playing a recreation sport, an intramural type of league, and she was ready to take it to the next level. There was very, very low risk in staying in that recreation league, that intramural league, because everyone was just kind of doing it for fun. And she still wanted to do it for fun, but she wanted to up level. And she was struggling with, this is someone that I worked with one on one. She was struggling with, like, well, what if I fail? What if I don't make the team? There's an A team and a B team. What if I don't make even the B team? And, we worked through that, and it's like, well, do you want to do that? And she's like, yeah, I do. And so we took kind of a trip down, like, thinking, I was going to say memory lane, but like thinking about her journey in softball and reminding her of where she started, because she, we talked about, like, okay, when you first started, what was that like for you? What is the first thing you did? What do you remember? And so we kind of took that journey of her progressing even to the level that she was at that time when we had the conversation. And it really helped her see that, oh my gosh, I have made a lot of progress. So if sometimes it's just reminding them of that, and how it wasn't easy in the beginning. And, she did try out and she didn't make it, but we used it, and she was upset, and I didn't ever say, um like, oh well, just, it's fine, you'll get it. I mean, of course I encouraged her, but we didn't dwell on the fact that she didn't make it. We turned it into a learning opportunity. And yes, feel it, because it doesn't feel good. It does not feel good. And I would never pretend that failures feel great, because no one wants to fail. It feels awful. It feels awful in your body. You feel like a failure. You feel like you're never going to get it. You feel like giving up. And I really am a big fan of reframing that as, it's easy to give up. Anyone can give up. The people that make it are the ones that keep going. And just reminding her of that mindset shift is so important in those conversations. And of course, being that empathetic, warm adult and acknowledging, yes, it's hard. I hate that you didn't make it. What did you learn from the tryout? Well, most of the girls have been playing most of their life. They threw like this, they did this. So she had a decision to make. And I asked her, do you still want to play for this team? Because there's nothing wrong with just being recreation, but it also means you staying in your comfort zone. And I think that's the danger of girls being stuck in that fear of failure, is they do what's easy. And what we don't want is for them to turn into young women and women as they are getting older, and always avoid anything challenging, because we grow from challenges, and that's how we up level. And it's not ever about achieving. It's about being able to handle setbacks in healthy ways and not letting them stop you or deter you. And sometimes we can pivot and make a different decision. But in this case, she still wanted to. So what did she do? And I said, what will get you there? What will get you there in the spring? Because this was the fall tryout. What will get you there in the spring? Well, if I do hitting practice, if I ask my dad to take me or my mom to take me to the batting cages, and 3 times a week we hit balls, or I have, when I'm by myself, I have my mitt. I throw pop flies to myself, or I have my brother help, or, so we brainstormed like, what are ways for you to take action to move through this to improve? And what it did is, and over the course of several months, she did this. What it did is it built her resilience, it built her confidence. And regardless of whether she made the team later, she was learning some important skills, and that's not giving up and not being afraid to fail. And I think about my own life, and I think at that age, how many things I tried out for, and one time, and I didn't make it, and I never tried again. And that's what we want to avoid with girls, is letting that one time stop them if it's something that they want to do. So for me, it was volleyball. My dad, was a referee for volleyball for years. And I spent a lot of time on the weekends because, if you don't know, my parents are divorced. And I grew up with my stepdad and my mom, and my biological dad I would see on weekends. And a lot of times I would spend it at a gym, watching him referee volleyball for years. And I listened to music in my headphones, and I would take things to entertain myself. And then in between matches, we would, bump the ball back and forth or do things like that. My dad worked with me a lot on sports. Both of my dads did, actually. It wasn't natural for me. Like, it was something I really had to work at. And so I decided one time that I was going to try out for the school volleyball team. And I didn't make it because I wasn't at the level that the other girls were. And I chose to use that as an example that I wasn't good enough. And let's be honest, I wasn't. I wasn't good enough at that time. And instead of saying to my dads, I would really like to make this team. Would you help me build my skills and help me, meet this goal? I was afraid of it. And I used it as evidence that it was yet another thing that I wasn't good at, and I wasn't good enough to be on, because I was so used to those limiting beliefs and looking for evidence and thinking that everyone else had it so easy. And, I never thought of myself as having like a victim mindset, but I really did at times, because I had had such internal chaos that, I didn't really know how to do that for myself or to ask for what I needed. So instead, I hid from it, and I used it as evidence that I wasn't good enough in yet another way. And I've seen this a lot from girls, in the social setting. So, making new friends is super high risk. And there is a fear of failing to make a new friend, especially if they're in new classes, at any level, and they don't know a lot of people in the class. And so there is this high risk of failing at making a friend. And it's easier to just stick to your comfort zone and stick to your same people that you're always around. So, really, this is from kindergarten all the way through college. And I hear from all ages where it's like, it's easy to stick with what's familiar and to not ask someone's name or find out more about them or things like that. And we've got to really support girls in doing that. And that's really the purpose of Girls Positivity Club. And this podcast is to equip you and the girls that are in clubs and camps, equip them in the environment to know how to work through these things so that they have the tools as they're growing up, instead of waiting until they're adults and not knowing what to do, or letting setbacks really, really set them back. So, the problem with this is that I've really been studying some research lately, and 50%, this is from the American Psychological Association, 50% of girls ages 10 to 17 avoid challenging activities because they fear failing or not being good enough or not being as good as. And, fear can lead to lack of resilience, limiting girls' willingness to take those risks, trying new things, like limiting them from trying new things, and really setting them back of building their confidence. So if you only stay in your comfort zone, it's just going to get boring. And even though, yes, there are some times when we need things to be easier and comfortable, there's also a lot of value in having a challenge and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, not to see who can achieve the most or, whatever, like tick all the boxes, but because that's part of life. Is we are, unfortunately, going to have setbacks, and so are your daughters, and so are the girls in your life. And as much as we would love to follow them around and make sure that nothing ever sets them back, it actually would be a big disservice, because what they have to learn is how to get through those challenges. And, I even think about my son right now, who is 16. And last week we went to a national BMX race. And for those of you who don't know, I have a son who races BMX, and he wears, a helmet and everything, but he's on a bicycle and he's racing. He's getting faster. He's up leveling. And he had a setback this weekend. He crashed really hard and he has a concussion now. And, he's very bruised. His hip is really, it's like a pretty bad gash. And his back has bruises all on it. And at first, he was like, why do I do this sport? But he loves it. And we've never pressured him like to be this high level and to, you know, like you can't ever make a mistake or whatever. But I think about like a friend of his who did give up, and he was at the same level and it started to get hard. And, Ryan is very determined, and he gets that honestly because my husband and I are both very determined people. And I didn't think about how much of an impact that would have on him, but it has, which is good. It can be good, and it can also be a challenge sometimes because that determination can not always be aligned with what is best. In his case of growing up, like sometimes he's very determined to get things that, you know, whatever. It's typical teenage things. But it's like his friend gave up and now is not doing anything. And there's a point where, Ryan, it was very hard when he was 15. He had a very, very hard season. And I think about girls too. Like there can be a point in whatever area they're interested in, whether it be art, music, drama, sports in some way, whatever the activity would be. And it's like there will be a point where they plateau and they have a decision to make. Do they want to grow in this area, or do they want to stay the same? And there can be that fear of failure of like, okay, if I up level, I'm probably going to have some failure. And, my son struggled an entire year before he made progress, and he kept at it and kept at it. He kept working. And now he's at the level where he's really starting to gain traction. And then he had a setback. He had a crash. And I'm actually taking him to the doctor today to get, the assessment and everything. But the point is, we all have those moments and we have a decision to make. And what we want to do is encourage our girls and our daughters how to continue to work through it and share examples even from our own life. So, if you think about even people like Sara Blakely, if you didn't know, created Spanx. And one thing that her parents did, which I think is really cool, is I think it was her dad actually, around the dinner table, every single day, he would ask them what they failed at doing. And at first I was like, oh, that sounds super negative. But what he was trying to do is show them that there are little failures every day that they overcome. And, I love Spanx. And when I ordered, a bodysuit, because it helps me in my confidence as I'm transitioning and getting healthier and more fit. There's a little, like, it's like a card that's inside. And I'm sure that it's in every product, but it's a quote from Sara Blakely, and it says, to me, failure is not trying rather than not succeeding. And, that's really what this is all about is, teaching our girls to keep trying. And, really the failure would be never taking a risk and never trying anything new. That's what we want for our girls, right? Is for them to be able to work through things. So what can you do to support her in that? Well, risk is something that she's going to have to do. So the acronym for this week for the tips is risk. The first thing is the R, which is reframe. So teaching her, and this is if you're a teacher or if you know about growth mindset, this is very common in schools. It's like reframing challenges instead of, why did I fail? Why do I always fail? Letting her feel that and then saying, what can you learn from it? What can you learn from it? What is it helping you with in getting to this next point? And that can be hard in the moment, but the more you build that muscle of helping her reframe and think about, like, how is this helping me? Um, and giving her examples from your own life, that is one of the ways, especially, that you can connect with her. Because as much as we think our kids know about our lives, and I agree with, there are some things that you do keep, to yourself from your kids, because you don't necessarily want them to know every second of everything in your life. But there's a lot of value in sharing your failures and how you work through it. And there's a poster that I love from, a lot of schools and classrooms have it, like, the power of yet. Like, I don't have this yet, but I'm working on it. Just teaching her those reframes and those mindset shifts is so powerful. And also, like, what if it works out? What if I do figure this out? How would this be if I do figure out how to overcome this? Just those simple shifts in mindset are really powerful. And then the I is inspiring persistence. So, sharing stories of successful women, and I've mentioned this in other podcasts, thinking of who would she relate to? Because maybe Oprah Winfrey isn't someone, or Sarah Blakely, that they even know. So it's thinking of young women who have overcome something and have done something great. So whether it's an athlete, if it's Malala, if it's, just think of your daughter and what she's interested in, and a quick Google search, or literally pressing Siri and being like, hey Siri, who are some girls who have overcome challenges in gymnastics? I mean, Simone Biles obviously is a huge, you know, one, and also Jordan Childs. Like, there's so many people, but fill in the blank. You can literally do a Google search, or Siri, even while you're driving, just push the button and say, what are some stories of overcoming in an area of interest that would connect with your daughter? Because you can tell her about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but if she doesn't know or relate to her story, it's really just going to sound like a story to her. So it's really thinking of, like I said, in your own life, in other family members' lives, sharing those stories and inspiring that persistence by showing them that they can do it too. The S is to set small goals. So that doesn't mean necessarily super easy things that they'll achieve in 5 seconds. And again, it's not always about achievement, but if it is, like, if you think of breadcrumbs, it's like breadcrumbs leading you to the bigger goal. So in the example of the softball player, it's like, what did she need to do to get her to that, making that team, if that was her goal, or just improving her skill and feeling more confident when she got up to bat, or when she had a pop fly come to her, or whatever it would be. It's making those goals. And what she did is she said, I'm going to throw myself 10 balls in the air at this level, every night after dinner. And then after that, it was, I'm going to do 15. And then it was, I'm going to do 20. And then it was, I'm going to try this other thing. I'm going to have my dad throw grounders to me, 50 grounders, or whatever it would be. And then it's showing her, like, each time she accomplishes that thing, it makes her feel more confident in that area, and it helps her see that this progress is going to lead to growth, and to her, if it is a goal that she wants to achieve that's bigger, it's going to lead her down that path. And the only downside is she doesn't make the team, she doesn't do the thing. However, who she becomes along the way is going to teach her so much about herself, and about building that muscle of handling setbacks, showing herself that she can make progress and she doesn't have to be perfect. And then the K is keeping the conversation open. And it's like Sarah Blakely's dad, having open conversations about failure and about challenges. And if you don't like the word failure, use challenge. Like, was there anything that was challenging today, and how did you work through it? And maybe again, it's, are you open to talking about some challenges today? Like, did you face any challenges today? And it's never to force her to have a challenge, but it's just having that regular conversation and normalizing the fact that everybody has challenges every day, and sharing some that you've experienced, and, you know, deciding whether it's something you're like, well, this didn't go well today, But what I told myself is this, and I know that every day is a fresh start, and I'm just going to keep at it. I'm going to keep trying. And I went for a walk at lunch to kind of reset myself, and I felt better. And I tried not to just dwell on what I didn't do well, but use it to help me learn to do better next time. And then, it's funny how when you're vulnerable and you share, it then normalizes and makes you feel more human rather than her parent or caregiver or auntie or whoever. And then it's more likely that she's going to open up to you and be like, actually, this did happen today. I said hi to my friend and she just kind of didn't really acknowledge that I did. And that felt really hurtful. But I decided that, maybe she was having a bad day and I don't know what she's going through either. So I'm going to keep trying. Or I've tried a lot of times with her and I'm just going to move on to someone else and try to have a friendship or talk to someone else in class. So, it's having those conversation starters. Like, can you think of a time when you were afraid to try something new? And, what was it that helped you overcome it? So, it's knowing those stories for her too is like, remember when we went to the pool and you were so scared to jump in without holding your nose? And finally, we, talked about like when you and think about like little things like that. Like when you did this, how did you overcome it? Oh, I learned how to blow bubbles with my nose. And, silly examples that are from when they were younger can make them see. And just like before, the softball example, helping her see how far she's come and that she really has had things she's overcome. Remember the time that you tried this food and you were so scared to try it? And then you liked it or you didn't like it, but at least you knew you tried it. And so just reminding her of that, and that can be a really good conversation. Um, and then what's something that you've tried that didn't go as planned? Thinking about like what's something you tried that didn't go as you planned, but you learned something from it. So I always think of cooking examples. Like one time I dumped half of the pepper container into a recipe. I just lost, the grip on the container. And I just stirred it up and it actually ended up being a really good accident. I've also done the opposite where I didn't check the expiration of something and then I made it. I always talk about the famous brownie story. The kids always love me to tell it, where I didn't realize my oil was expired. I didn't even know oil could expire. This is when I was in my 20s. And they were the most disgusting brownies. But I learned. I learned to check the date on the oil. I learned to make sure the lid was fastened on the pepper. But then actually, it ended up being a happy accident. So again, it's reminding them and thinking of how can this help us grow? How can you grow from this? How can I learn from this? And just having those conversations, because putting failure in a positive light doesn't mean you ever ignore failure, you ignore challenges, but it's about not being afraid of them. And, it's okay to be mad about it or upset. I was mad yesterday about a challenge that I had. I'm like, oh, come on. Like, this is something that, I did not expect, and I felt it and I, worked through my anger and I'm like, it's okay that I'm angry about this. I'm going to figure it out. This is going to help me figure out another way that I can get girls positivity clubs in this one school system. And the setback was that you have to be a resident of that town to have the organization in the schools, which is silly to me. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. But I'm going to figure out a way because those girls need my support and our organization's support. So I'll figure it out. I was upset about that. I'm like, really? A zip code is what's going to make the difference of us not bringing this amazing club to the school, but I'll figure it out. So what are the outcomes? What are the positive outcomes of your daughter learning more of this growth mindset and not being afraid of failure and us not being afraid of her failing and thinking that it's going to destroy her? Because it's really going to help her become more confident as she works through these. And she's going to be more willing to take on challenges and take more risks that are healthy risks. It's going to help her handle setbacks in positive ways and not avoid them. It's going to help her be adaptable to situations, which is going to grow her confidence. And it's going to develop that growth mindset that we want her to serve her all the way into adulthood. I know that that is something that I'm constantly working on. And yeah, so I think really it all comes down to what do we want for our girls long term? And it really is to teach them these skills as they're growing up so that they have the positive tools and supports that they need to live their life and know that it doesn't have to be perfect and that they can do all kinds of things. So I hope this was helpful. Again, if you would share this with another parent, caregiver, someone in a girl's life that this could help, I would be forever grateful. And until next time, keep raising those confident girls. I know you've got this. You don't have to be a perfect parent, and your girls are going to be able to do amazing things when they just embrace that fear of failure and keep going. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining another empowering episode of the Raising Confident Girls podcast. Share today's insights with caregivers and friends, building beautiful relationships with strong girls. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're not just a podcast, we're a community. Follow Girls Positivity Club on social media for more empowering content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. This podcast empowers you, supporting incredible girls. Let's create strong, beautiful relationships with the girls in our lives. I appreciate you listening today. Stay confident, stay connected. Until next time, keep raising those confident girls. You've got this.